Number 7. Amber HILBERLING. In 2011, a woman from Tulsa, Oklahoma was accused of killing her husband. 5 years later, she was found dead in her prison cell. Amber HILBERLING was sentenced to 25 years in jail on a second-degree murder charge. She was accused of pushing her Air Force veteran husband, 23-year-old Joshua HILBERLING, out of a window on the 25th floor of their apartment building. Although she was convicted, she maintained her innocence throughout the trial. Even after being handed the guilty verdict, she claimed it wasn't her. Amber was only 19 years old when the incident happened. She said that she and her husband were arguing when she shoved Joshua. She did not mean to make him crash through the window and fall to his death. Amber was also 7 months pregnant with Joshua's child at the time when he passed away. During her 2013 trial, Amber blamed the unusually thin glass windows in the high-rise apartment building for the accident that ended in Joshua's death. But according to the victim's family who testified in court, the veteran had already packed his bags and was planning to leave Amber after enduring abuse for months on end. The jury was even shown a copy of an emergency protective order the man had obtained against his wife the month before his untimely demise. The suspect had already thrown a lamp at Joshua's head, leaving him needing stitches. After that, he knew there was no saving their relationship. But the order ended up getting dismissed since the couple never showed up on time for their court date. Amber testified on June 7, 2011, that she pushed Joshua in self-defense after he allegedly grabbed her harshly by the shoulders during a heated exchange. But she didn't expect the window to break and him to fall 25 stories. Joshua's battered body was found on the roof of the apartment's parking garage. At the time, Rhonda Whitlock, Amber's mother, stated that her pregnant daughter, who only stands 5 feet 5 inches tall, couldn't have possibly pushed Joshua, who stands at 6 feet 6 inches, to his death. Rhonda told local station News on 6 that the facts and size difference just didn't add up. Regardless of how Rhonda felt deep down, Amber was found guilty of murder and was given a hefty prison sentence as the cherry on top. Then in October 2016, she was discovered dead in her cell. Just a few days after her body was noticed, a letter arrived at Amy Sullivan's house, the executive producer for Tulsa's Channel 8. It was written by Amber herself, and it was in response to the station's request to interview her about her life story and her time behind bars. Amber wrote, "I am willing to do an interview, despite my honest reservations." This letter cast doubt on the medical examiner's claim that she died from a suicide attempt. Why would she agree to a meeting with a journalist and then take her own life? Amber's parents also felt that the letter was proof their daughter wouldn't have killed herself. But in the end, her official cause of death has stayed the same. Number 6. Spencer Donovan Gougler. A package-stealing porch pirate with women's underwear on his head was finally arrested by the Tulsa Police Department in early 2023. The burglar, Spencer Donovan Gougler, was reported to authorities on January 6th. He'd apparently been stealing packages and boxes from a house on Maybell Avenue, and according to police reports, it wasn't his first time either. The cops managed to find the suspect's vehicle thanks to surveillance images. This led them to discover that Spencer had not only committed previous acts of porch piracy, but he also did it while wearing women's underwear in an inarguably incorrect way. Images were then released by the police department showing Spencer wearing the items on his head in an attempt to hide his face from cameras. It obviously didn't work. The man's not that bright. Once investigators identified him, they went to Spencer's house and knocked on the door. They knew he was home, but he refused to talk with any officers, so cops with the Gilcrease Division Impact Unit stood guard at the property, while other officers got a search warrant. When police came back, Spencer finally came out of the house. He's since been charged with 1 count of knowingly concealing stolen property, 5 counts of larceny, and 1 count of grand larceny. On January 7, 2023, he was put in the Tulsa County Jail, but according to court records, Spencer posted bond and was released. Number 5. JERID Dustin Smith. In late 2022, a man was arrested in Ponca City, Oklahoma, for allegedly robbing a store while wearing a football-shaped mask. He needed the money in order to pay for the storage shed he lived in. JERID Dustin Smith's attempted robbery ended in a complete failure. On December 4th, he walked into a stop-and-go with a small revolver at about 5 in the morning. He then held up the store at gunpoint and did so wearing a mask in the shape of a football. It was like Hey Arnold. He managed to get away after the incident and made off with a few bucks and some stolen goods. But then on January 3, 2023, officers with the Ponca Police Department went to a storage unit in the 900 block of North Union. Inside the structure, they found Smith and an unidentified female. According to police reports, Smith tried to hide from officers, but he was quickly found and arrested. He was then taken to the station and questioned by police. It didn't take long to get a confession out of him, and Smith admitted to robbing the convenience store with the mask on. Smith told investigators that he only carried out the crime so that he and his girlfriend could have enough money to pay for their storage shed. Even if he had a good reason for his actions, Smith is now charged with first-degree robbery and obstructing an officer. He's also facing charges in other cases, including domestic abuse, falsely impersonating another to create liability, failure to equip a bicycle with brakes, and second-degree robbery. He's being held at the Ponca City Jail and his total bond is set at $7,500. Number 4. Jessica LaVon McBride. An Oklahoma woman confessed to killing her former roommate over measly food stamps in March 2019. Tracy Elaine Russell let Jessica LaVon McBride, her former roommate, and Jessica's boyfriend stay at her home while they looked for a place to live. McBride and Russell weren't on great terms though at the end. Apparently, McBride believed Russell had taken advantage of her food stamps in the days before being kicked out of her home. Without enough evidence, the accusation ate away at McBride, causing something inside her to snap. Then on March 17th, McBride showed up at Russell's house. Once in the home, she put Russell in a chokehold, ultimately resulting in the woman's death. Tulsa police were called to the residence on March 20th. There, they found the strangled body of the victim, which appeared to be partially burned. And later that night at around 10:30 p.m., McBride was stopped from getting into the house holding lighter fluid. When the homicide unit showed up at the property, they concluded that a fire had been started in the home earlier that day. It seemed like McBride was returning to the residence to restart the flames. And because Russell was a member of the Cherokee Nation and the murder took place on Cherokee Nation territory, the case went federal. In April 2021, McBride was finally charged with second-degree murder in Indian country, corruptly attempting to alter, destroy, mutilate, and conceal an object to impair its use in an official proceeding, arson, and attempt to commit arson. As part of a plea deal, McBride managed to get the murder charge reduced to voluntary manslaughter. While she has yet to be given a sentence, prosecutors are pushing for the maximum 15 years in addition to supervised release and a fine of no more than $250,000. Unfortunately, it's unclear when McBride's next sentencing hearing will take place. Would you rather find out that your partner was a drug dealer or find out that your partner killed someone in their past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button to see more cool videos. Number 3. Nicholas Garrison. A 24-year-old man from Tulsa, Oklahoma, allegedly stole over $12,000 worth of Pokemon cards in 2021 and then tried to sell them in Texas a year later. On October 11, 2021, an officer with the Crestwood Police Department noticed that the glass door of Yeti Gaming had been completely shattered, and after further investigation, fingerprints and blood were found on several broken glass display cases inside the business. DNA samples were taken from the scene to try and help identify who was responsible for the break-in and theft. Luckily, the game store had surveillance cameras, and the suspect was eventually identified as Nicholas Garrison. The man had apparently used a hammer to break open the shop's glass display cases. Garrison then stole a total of $12,257.50 worth of Pokemon cards and a few other items. Then, only 10 days after the crime, police were informed that someone had been arrested in Bedford, Texas for trying to sell stolen gaming cards, similar to the ones taken from Yeti Gaming. According to police reports, Garrison was discovered with a massive amount of collectible cards during a routine traffic stop in Dallas, but at the time, local authorities hadn't been told of the recent burglaries. Luckily though, the cards were still collected from the suspect's car, and Garrison was taken into custody before getting booked into the Madison County Detention Center in Illinois. In the end, he was charged with second-degree burglary, first-degree property damage, and stealing $750 or more based on reports from local news station KMOV-TV. He's currently being held in jail on a $50,000 cash-only bond, while his case works its way through the legal system. Number 2. Sarah McCoy Griffin and James Guillory. In August 2022, an 18-year-old woman and a 20-year-old man were arrested in Oklahoma City for killing an individual that lived in a homeless camp. According to experts with the Homeless Alliance, homeless people are at a much higher risk for being the victim of violent crimes. Megan Mueller, the Associate Executive Director for the Homeless Alliance, quoted a 2018 survey while speaking to Fox 25 in an interview, stating that 41% of people claimed they'd experienced some type of violence while living on the streets. Oklahoma City police showed up at the crime scene near John Kilpatrick Service Road after receiving reports at 8:15 a.m. that someone had died in the homeless camp. The deceased man, 51-year-old Jeff Scrivonic, was discovered immediately by officers. The victim showed obvious injuries that pointed to a bloody homicide, and as a result, an investigation was launched in order to find the people responsible. Their investigation led them to Sarah McCoy Griffin and James Guillory, who were also both homeless. The two of them were arrested for the crime and booked into Oklahoma County Detention Center on charges of first-degree murder. Police Sergeant Dylan Quirk said that the incident happened after a disagreement between Sierra and Jeff happened over a dog. Guillory's father told a different story though, stating that his son was acting in self-defense because the victim had apparently tried to lay hands on and sexually assault his girlfriend. According to court documents, Guillory strangled Jeff, but after seeing that he was still breathing, he wrapped the dog's leash around his neck before hanging him on a branch. The details of the case are still foggy, and unfortunately, it's not clear whether or not the couple have been sentenced for their crime. Number 1. KRISTIE Evans. A 49-year-old woman from Pontotoc County, Oklahoma, was handed a life sentence for her role in the death of her pastor husband back in 2021. At 1 a.m. on March 22nd, the Ada Police Department got a call from KRISTIE Evans. She was reporting a break-in at her home that ended in her husband, David Evans, being shot to death. When police got to the scene, David was found with a fatal gunshot wound and was pronounced dead. KRISTIE claimed that someone came into the house and killed her husband, but there was no sign of forced entry. And after further investigation, it was found out that KRISTIE had a lover she'd been keeping a secret. The man she was having an affair with, 26-year-old Khalil Square, was apparently responsible for the murder, but KRISTIE was the brains behind the operation. The woman had supposedly provided the gun and bullets to Square on the day her husband was killed. 3 days after the crime on March 25th, KRISTIE and Square were finally arrested. Then, almost exactly a year later, KRISTIE pleaded guilty to the murder. On August 10, 2022, she was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Khalil Square was handed the same sentence for his role in the crime. Which of these crime cases from Oklahoma did you find the craziest? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.